Hello everybody, welcome back to the DenziBlitz. I'm Mike from Electric City Sentai DenziCaster, and this is of course the show where we go through some tokusatsu television series in fairly rapid succession. This is part 4 of our 10-part series about Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, the 1992 installment in the Super Sentai series that was the inspiration and the basis for the 1993 Saban series Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1. Somewhat topical, seeing as how the Lionsgate will be handling the Power Rangers remake movie here in the not-too-distant future. Now, we're going through this series one disc at a time, 10 discs, 10 parts, and just got done watching disc 4. Now, on the Blitz, we don't go in as much detail as we do on our regular DenziCaster series, because we're covering more episodes per episode. So there is that. This is more impressions, observations, thoughts, etc., etc. This batch of episodes, and for those who watched part 3, I got it back in one piece, so that's a good thing. As we near the halfway point, and I'm just rearranging some discs like I should have done before I started recording, so that I can look at the episode guide inside the case here. And of course, this is the Shout Factory US release. Very much encourage you to support anytime a tokusatsu gets domestically released, and this was the first of what is now 4 Super Sentai television series to get American releases. Zyuranger was the first one to be released here in the States, followed by Dai Ranger and Kaku Ranger seasons 2 and 3 of Mighty Morphin respectively, and then Kyoryu Sentai O-Ranger, which becomes Power Rangers Zeo here in the States. All of those have had commercial releases here in the US now, so I very much encourage you. You can still find this one on Amazon and any number of other online retailers. Very affordable, just $40. And Shout Factory, for the record, does not pay us a single red cent, though if they would like, get a hold of us. But they don't pay us. This is not endorsed. This is not an advertisement. This is a review of the series as a whole, not the Shout Factory release thereof. So, this batch of episodes called The Great Sneeze Plot, The Sixth Hero, The Hate-Filled Brother's Sword, Female Warrior Scorpion, and Daizujin's Last Day. Tokusatsu shows in Japan have never been known for keeping their titles spoiler-free. So, the big deal of these episodes, for the most part, we are focusing on Geki and our 6th Ranger. Now, that's one thing that's interesting to note, and we'll talk about here a little bit more in depth. The first episode out of the 5 was a focus episode for Boy, our Yellow Ranger, Tiger Ranger, as he is called in this series. So that episode focused on him, and it was a typical focus episode for a hero. So we have our hero, we learn about them, we see them in action, they learn some moral, they grow, they evolve. But the next 4 episodes focus largely on Geki, and specifically Geki and his relationship with his brother, the Dragon Ranger, Burai. Now, this is the American Legacy Morpher release of the Green/White Ranger Morpher, but the concept and the design started its life as the Dragon Buckler, the morpher of the Dragon Ranger in Japan, who was the very first 6th Ranger ever. Now, well, I should say the first 6th Ranger to be regular in the series for any length of time. Super Sentai, at this point in the game, and always in Power Rangers since day 1, since Mighty Morphin was based off of this show, has had the 6th hero, the 6th Ranger. And basically it is a Ranger that appears at some point later. They're separate from the original group. They're separate from the core membership of the team. Often are not counted among the core membership's number. And usually will have their own mecha that is more powerful, able to form its own humanoid robotic form at some point, though not in this series. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen Mighty Morphin or Zyuranger yet. But they are usually more powerful than any one of the other Rangers, and sometimes more powerful than the entire team combined. The first time we ever see a 6th Ranger is in one of the 80s Super Sentai shows, Mask Man. And it's a character called X1 Mask, who is literally nothing more than the prototype for the Mask Man technology. Now, that character lasted 1 episode, and it was only meant to. It was sort of a one and done. But it was very well received, and as a result, we have the 6th Ranger phenomenon kick up in earnest with Zyuranger. Now, the origin of our first 6th Ranger is the focal point of this batch of episodes. So, Barai, as we find out, is Geki's brother. That Geki is actually the adopted son of the tribal king and queen from the Yamato tribe, because they couldn't have kids. So he is adopted at 1 year of age, does not even realize he has an older brother, is raised as if he never did. When his birth father attempts to overthrow the king and take over the throne, the king fights back. The king defeats him and is going to leave him and show mercy. But when the would-be usurper refuses to accept his defeat, he gets up. He makes one final charge at the king. The king kills him where he stands, and he does all of this right in front of Barai's eyes. Barai becomes this young man filled with rage and hatred, and when Bandora winds up causing the catastrophe, the battle that takes the lives of the Yamato tribe's king and queen, the only focal point for his hatred becomes Geki, the heir apparent to the throne, and his own brother. And he knows that Geki's his brother. He is 7 years older than Geki, so he is old. He was old enough to remember what happened. So an interesting dynamic is set up. He too was frozen away. We don't know if it was with the intention of helping defeat Bandora should she return, or if it was with the intention of exacting his revenge. We're not certain either way. There is a key, very similar to the keys we see in episode 1, that are used to release the Zyurangers. Green in color this time. There is a separate cave, a separate shrine where he is kept. He is, rather than being held in the Phantom Zone, he is sort of lying in state on a table covered in cobwebs and surrounded by candles. So when he awakes, he immediately attacks the Zyurangers. And that is a massive difference between this show and Mighty Morphin. It's, of course, we draw comparisons between the two because they're there. In Mighty Morphin, Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, becomes the Green Ranger because of Rita Repulsa. She gives him his powers. She is the reason that he becomes evil. She brainwashes him. Tommy Oliver is intrinsically a good person. In this, Barai is filled with rage. There is no evil spell. Bandora is not the source of his power. He has the power the same way the rest of the Zyurangers have it. It is simply, he is out for revenge. And to the point that Daizujin, as we've said earlier, the Guardian Beasts are jerks from time to time. Daizujin even tells Geki, you must deal with your brother. You must defeat him. He is our enemy. And so we have that dynamic build, and we have for the first time our Rangers truly out and out defy the Guardian Beast. Specifically, Geki does. So we start seeing some growth of characters. Barai is throwing his lot in for the time being, and you can tell that it is nothing more than a temporary arrangement with Bandora to destroy the Zyurangers and to exact his revenge. She does give him a weapon, the dark sword Hellfried, which may or may not be corrupting part of his emotional state, may or may not be holding him under some sort of sway. I'm not sure about that just yet. I've seen some of these episodes up to this point, but I forget many of them. Um, so we don't know just yet whether that is the case or not. We know that in Mighty Morphin, the sword itself, the dark sword, was actually what was the physical manifestation of Tommy's of the spell Tommy was under from Rita. So it remains to be seen if that's the case here. We also see the debut of Lammy, who in the American version is Scorpina. In Mighty Morphin, she is essentially Goldar's partner. In this, she is Goldar's wife, well, Gryffindor's wife. And she is very much like she was in Mighty Morphin. Thus far, she is an incredibly capable and proud warrior. We see her huge monster form as well. She falls into a proud tradition in Sentai of having the very beautiful and sexy evil warrior, female warrior at some point in the series. As they used to say, it was something for the dads that were watching the show with their kids. So we have her appear in these with some fanfare. Goldar, Gryffindor, finally gets to talk. Up to this point in the show, he basically just grunts and growls, and that's about it. We come to find out it's because he has not been given the ability to talk. He's been stripped of his voice at some point, and Bandora restores that to him. So we get that, and we find out that he's a bit on the sexist side. So we get lots of different machinations, and a lot of this now, because the last 4 episodes of this are sequential. They are episodic. There is a serialized story between them. And it's all about Bandora wanting to destroy Daisugen. One thing that is said repeatedly up to this point, and I somewhat wrote it off as a way things were being translated, to be perfectly honest. Bandora keeps referring to Satan of Hell and asking for him to help her, grant her power, and do these different things. And the Japanese, ancient Japanese mythologies and religions did have demons and the like in it. So I'd sort of basically just wrote it off as that. With the guardian beasts being deities in and of themselves, but in this they actually say, over the course of these episodes, that Daisugen is effectively, as far as this series is concerned, a manifestation of God. Not multiple gods, not a god, but God with a capital G. Which wouldn't be the first time that a Japanese television show, be it an anime or a live-action series, pulled something quite like this to create sort of an ultimate good and evil mentality and story. And in this, it is all about Daisugen, this manifestation of an ancient ultimate deity, being destroyed and defeated by Bandora. That is her goal. That is who she wants to take revenge upon. It's Daisugen, not the Zyurangers themselves. They're a means to an end. And they craft this elaborate plan in order to ensure Daisugen's destruction, and that is precisely what they do. By the end of episode 20, we see the iconic scene to MMPR fans of the guardian beasts falling into the earth, into the magma, and presumably being destroyed. And we see our heroes watching from afar in utter shock, despair, and disarray, trying to figure out what they can do now. Very similar to a scene that we see during the Green with Evil storyline in Mighty Morphin, which is where this batch of episodes were primarily adapted. So lots of interesting things, lots of cool stuff. I really liked this batch of episodes. Like any tokusatsu show, there are entire swaths of episodes you can probably just skip. And out of this series thus far, if you were watching the Shout Factory DVD release, I think you pretty much have to watch, I would say at minimum, the first 6 episodes of the series just to establish the characters, the powers, the weapons. And then you could almost skip, straight to episode 17. I think you would probably need to watch episodes 9 and 10 with the dinosaur eggs on disc 2, because those actually come back into play with this plot line that introduces Barai, with our 6th Ranger plot line. So, very cool episodes, among my favorites so far. Great action, great effects for a 1992 live-action superhero show that's a 20-25 minute program. Actually, very cool effects. The fights were really cool when you saw them in Power Rangers. They're even cooler here because they're not adapted and edited for American television. So it's even cooler here. One thing we didn't mention in the last episode was the music. The music in this show is hit and miss. This batch was a miss because typically Super Sentai shows will have the theme song, and then you have various insert songs. You're going to hear the theme song a lot over the course of the series, not just during the show open, but it will appear in episodes. The Zyuranger theme to me is atrocious. It is among my least favorite Super Sentai theme songs of all time. The ending theme is worse, but I give a pass to most ending themes because most of the ending themes are a little on the goofy side. The Daizujin theme appeared on disc 3 for the first time. It's terrible too. And in this batch of episodes, and I'll catch some flack for it, I'm sure, but remember, this is, of course, one man's opinion. We get the Queen Bandora song. And we get it twice. It's basically a song they sing to celebrate. And, yeah, it's awful. No, with all respect to the late Machiko Soga, because she hammed it up exceedingly well, but yeah, it was not even remotely good. So, yeah, thank goodness the writing, the characters, the action, the effects, thank goodness for all of that, because the music is... So, that's disc 4. That means we have 6 discs to go. We are almost halfway through. We're now more than a third of the way through Zyuranger. The next batch of episodes, we will, looks like, probably conclude the Zyuranger Green with Evil storyline. I say that for want of a better term, Barai's debut in the series. Of course, if you want to see more of DenziCaster with our in-depth discussions, it's right here on the ECS Network YouTube channel. We encourage you to check us out on Facebook. Give us a like at facebook.com/DenziCaster and let us know what you think of the show itself and maybe what we should watch in the future. Of course, if you would like to support us here in some way and help us out with the channel, you are more than welcome to do that. Check out our store at the ECS Network. It's cafepress.com/ECS Network. You can find lots of great swag there. T-shirts, drinkware, stuff for your car, various little things over there at cafepress.com/ECS Network for all the great shows, not just DenziCaster, but Rage Quit Radio, the announcer's booth, and so on. It's all right over there, so check that out too. And of course, check out Zyuranger. If you like the series, if you like Mighty Morphin, find this somewhere online. It's the Shout Factory release, about $40 these days. Well worth the dime. So, until next time, when we check out Disc 5 and hit the halfway mark of Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, I'm Mike, and we'll see you next time on The Blitz.